Hello again, and welcome to The Quarantine. I'm your host, Wolf, the Porn Historian. Today we're going to take a look at Freedom Wars for the PlayStation Vita, developed by SCE Japan Studios, Shift, and Dimps, published by Sony Computer Entertainment. Freedom Wars is a third-person action hunting game similar to titles such as Monster Hunter, Soul Sacrifice, Tokiden, just to name a few. Let me ask you, do you like the gunplay and verticality of Lost Planet, the swordplay of Monster Hunter, and the feel and visual art design of Evangelion meets Attack on Titan? Then Freedom Wars is probably going to be the game for you. Freedom Wars has you take part in missions defending the city from abductors, rival sinners, rescuing civilians, gathering resources, all of which lower your sentence and let you gain more rights. Every mission can be replayed for grinding materials and to further reduce your 1 million year sentence, albeit the time lowered is reduced after the first time completing the mission. While on one of these missions, if your accessory, basically your parole officer, gets taken by an abductor and you can't get them back in, I think it's 2.5 minutes, they're gone. You wind up having to undergo a special mission to get them back, making you have to borrow a friend or an AI's accessory to help you get them back. When you start off the game, you have no rights at all. Even laying down while you sleep is a violation and adds a few years to your time. Completing missions and donating your precious resources you gather throughout missions to your Panopticon will get you entitlement points and lower your sentence that you can wind up using to unlock additional rights, such as the right to pace, which allows you to walk around in your cell for more than 5 steps, the right to speak with other sinners, the right to run, and etc., etc. It sounds like it might get annoying, but it's really not. It's more funny, as the first time you're talking to somebody and you set your Vita down for a couple seconds to take a drink, just to pick up your Vita, and you get a violation warning on the top of your, or in the middle of your screen that says unproductive silence violation, and it adds 20 years to your sentence. Kind of makes you paranoid to do anything. When completing missions, you get several hundred to several thousand years taken off, making the few, 20 to 80 years you get here and there for your violations meaningless, unless of course you're an idiot and keep doing things that give you penalties over and over again. After taking a mission, you're sent to a battleground. Unfortunately, only a few maps seem to be available, something like 6, albeit with different weather effects depending on the mission, like a sandstorm lowering visibility, just a standard night missions, and a few more. But it does seem like 3 of the maps get reused quite often. Coming from somebody who plays a lot of Soul Sacrifice Delta, I would have loved to have seen a few more maps, and or a little bit more variety in the maps, as they all seem to have a very similar brown and bloom kind of feel to it. They tend to look a little repetitive. The combat, as mentioned before, plays like a blend of Lost Planet meets Monster Hunter. Guns, you have an aim, a shoot, and a reload button. Swordplay plays out much like Monster Hunter, combining light and heavy attacks that can be charged for extra damage, and comboed with your Thorn, which is basically just a grappling hook with special abilities, such as pulling abductors down, pulling yourself to them, scaling buildings to get to higher ground. It's pretty badass. And it's pretty badass once you get used to it. One of the coolest parts in the game, in my opinion, is the ability to remove parts from the abductors, like Monster Hunter, only better. The sheer amount of removables are insane. That abductor annoying you with his laser cannons? Get rid of it. Does it have an annoying shield preventing range attacks? Saw that bitch off. So on and so forth. Almost everything, even its arms, hands, armors, heads, ribs, feet, and torso seem to be the only thing you can't actually remove. Except for some of the quadruped and octopeds, you can remove their feet and the armor over their legs, though I don't really know what it does. I think it just makes them more vulnerable and maybe has the ability to knock them off balance. I haven't tested it thoroughly, but that's what it seems like. There is a part that seems that it can't be removed, one part in the game, and it's really annoying. It's a boomerang that's on the back of some of the abductors, and it's by far one of the most annoying weapons in the game, as it can phase through walls, it seems, and it just keeps flying around the battlefield for a minute or so, attaches back to the abductor, and then he launches it again a few minutes later. It's really annoying, and you can't get rid of it. I would have thought with how much you can remove from the abductors that something as small as that would have been able to be removed. Maybe in a patch, maybe it was something that was overlooked, I don't know. But it's pretty annoying given the tone of the rest of the game. There are 6 groups of weapons and a total of about 36 or more weapons in all. As of this review, I've logged about 41 hours into the game, so there may be way more to unlock later. There are 3 types of thorns. There's a binding, a healing, and a shielding, each with their own abilities to make them each feel really unique. For example, the binding can lay mines, and it can be charged to stun the abductors for about 30 seconds, give or take. When you first start, the game allows you to customize yourself, which later can be altered anytime, kind of like Soul Sacrifice if you don't like how it turned out, including name and sex for that matter. You then choose a Panopticon to represent. These are basically assigned to large cities around the world. This can be changed, but it costs real money. I think it's something like $3. Donating your resources to your Panopticon raises the score and ranking of your Panopticon. The ones in the top 3 supposedly get free stuff. The highest mine has ever been is rank 6. The more players in it, the more they're donating, the bigger the Panopticon gets. So it's a neat little system, causes rivalry between players online and so on and so forth. The weapon crafting is pretty cool, yet infuriating as hell. After getting the appropriate privilege checked, and using some of the mats that you've gathered to craft weapons and later augments that can further customize you, the crafting takes time, whether the system's on or not. So the later upgrades that take 25 or more minutes, you can either just turn the console off, go make a sandwich, or play a few missions. The problem comes with the horrible RNG. Each weapon has a range for damage, ammo capacity, and magazine capacity. Then it has modules, which are based on its rarity. The higher your facilities rank, the better the chance of getting a rarer weapon. And if it's shit, you've just wasted the materials to craft it and have to either deal with it, or craft another and hope. It seems the game favors the lower 50% of the range, for me anyways. You then take it to the modification area of your facilities. You use another weapon and extra materials if you choose to do so to give it random modules. The modules that are on the weapon that you're scrapping and the materials that if you decide to choose extra ones, increase the chances of getting specific modules, but it's still incredibly random. On top of all of that, the modification has the chance to lower and raise some of the stats even further, and again, seemingly favoring lowering it. The modules it gets can be good, bad, or not work for that weapon at all because it's for a different type of weapon, a gun or whatever. For example, the current weapon I'm using took me almost all day of remodifying it about 30 times to get something that wasn't completely garbage. I would have liked to have seen more control over it. I'm usually really hesitant when using any super rare items to try to get something good out of it, just due to how random the game's crafting system really is. The game has co-op, which is basically just taking a friend with you instead of the AI, and it's incredibly fun, even though the net frame seems to be really shaky a lot of the time. But the versus mode would be insanely fun if it wasn't for how horribly unbalanced the game is. My first and only 4 matches pitted me and 3 other level 1s against 2 level 9s and 2 level 8s, causing us to get completely destroyed. Japan apparently got a patch that fixes this. The United States, and the rest of the world for that matter, really needs that patch. To me, the visuals of Freedom Wars gave me a very Attack on Titan meets Evangelion Angel kind of feel with it when it comes to the abductors. The graphics all look very crisp, very smooth. Never once did I encounter any hiccups in the frame rate or visuals at all. Moving up from a 20th century maximum security jail cell to what looks like a minimum security cell, and the minor details in between that change as you slowly move up to the east side, really nice. It's the small details in the game for for handheld. Such small details in it really make a difference. Each abductor looks pretty awesome. There's 2 to 3 generic ones that have a core chassis that the game just slaps parts onto, but the others, the unique ones, look amazing. They look even cooler. You get like a flying tiger looking one, this eyeball with chains. They look really, really cool. Even the generic ones look awesome. The particle effects on the map are done pretty well given the console. Everything from the burst from your gun to the energy flowing through a wrecked abductor that's laying on the ground. I can't really say anything negative about the visuals, aside from I would have liked to have seen more options for mixing and matching clothing and more variety in the maps. Other than that, the visuals look fantastic. The audio in Freedom Wars is fantastic as well. The grunts and groans as you dive all over the battlefield, the rounds flying overhead, the explosions, your accessory yelling at you about something or another. It's all fantastic. Does a very good job at making the game feel really tense. The game's story is fully voiced in Japanese, and all the yelling while in a mission is also in Japanese. I would have liked to maybe have a dub as an option, as some of the commands and orders that are shouted at you during a mission make you have to break from the combat to read the text at the bottom of the screen, sometimes resulting in you getting flung across the battlefield. Later in the game, you get the right to choose what combat music plays while you're in a mission, and that is amazing. The selection that you get is fantastic, and the music itself is awesome. The controls are pretty good, though they do take a bit of getting used to. My personal preference, I recommend changing the controls to the technical setup. The game gives you 4 different setups to choose from. Each setup suits what you're going to be using mainly. Then technical, in my opinion, is just a good middle ground. I do have to state that when using a Thorn ability with a gun, you're almost forced to use the claw in order to keep triangle held while running and trying to aim with both sticks at the same time. But it works, and any Monster Hunter veteran should feel very comfortable with the claw by now. Other than that, the controls change depending on what weapon you're using. For example, with the technical setup, R while using a gun is to shoot your gun. Whereas with a sword, it's to use your Thorn and your Thorn abilities. It may slip a few people up. One problem I had with the controls is the sprint button. In combat, it's X. Out of combat, and in the Panopticon, being R and X. It's easier to maneuver around the Panopticon while running, while holding R. That way it's easier to control the right stick. You get used to this and wind up shooting half your magazine off at the start of a mission because you went full stupid. Might not happen to you, but it happened to me quite a bit. Taking place in a dystopian future Earth where resources are scarce and the scientists, the engineers, the other educated personnel keep the city running, the lowly laborers and others with no skills are sentenced to be sinners and given a 1,000,000-year sentence because they're a drain on society. You slowly earn your right to be a drain. If you could manage to get to 0 years, I assume you get to be free to do whatever you want in terms of the story, sloth around I suppose. But as of now, I'm only down to something like 905,000 years. That said, after the credits, there seems to be more story, but I'm slowly, etching away at that. The story is alright. I enjoyed it, but I've been reading a lot of people find it boring and useless. Regardless, it works well enough to make you ask questions about each and every one of your teammates, to suspect everyone, but in all honesty, you could probably skip it and not really miss a whole lot. If you're like me, even if the story is mediocre at best, it's still what motivates me to progress. So, it's a matter of opinion. If you haven't guessed by now, I adore the hell out of Freedom Wars. Everything in this game feels awesome, albeit very unfair at times in the RNG that will piss you off to no end, wasting mat after mat because of shitty RNG. But even with that, the combat is rewarding, the weapon variety, and even the tension that builds up as you're crafting a weapon and watching that timer slowly drop, and you hope you get something good. It's like Christmas every time. Playing online with friends, attacking other Panopticons and verses, the stressful decisions of what to donate to get the points, to get that outfit or that upgrade you want. It's amazing. The game has its problems, the rage-inducing parts like every other game, but the good in Freedom Wars overshadows them big time. My only regret is not getting it digital so I can come back to the game later on down the road, on the fly, just when the mood strikes me and I don't have to carry the cartridge with me. I probably missed quite a bit with the game, but this review's gone on a lot longer than I would have liked to have been, but there's just so much to talk about with this game. But in short, should you buy Freedom Wars? Yes. If you're even remotely interested in hunting games or The Lost Planet or anything like that, this is definitely one of the required games for the PlayStation Vita. Uh, Thanks for watching, guys. If you could like, comment, and subscribe, I would appreciate it. And I'll see you next time on The Quarantine.